Hello, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. Today I wish to discuss with you The Weight of Water by Anita Shreve. Here's what it looks like, this particular edition. The Weight of Water is a masterclass in slow and steady build-up, in my opinion, constructed in highly detailed fashion that explores the seemingly mundane lives of unexceptional people, leading up to tragedy and shocking revelations about them. It accomplishes this feat in two for the price of one style, telling dual stories that are set a century apart. Shreve seamlessly guides the narrative back and forth. I marveled at the skill of the transitions. I've read a number of novels that tell parallel stories set in different time periods that are related to each other in some critical way. And commonly, the portions are separated by chapters or sections. I've also done some writing in which the narrative jumps back and forth in time, and I know that it can be a little complicated to let the reader know that you are leaving this period, you're jumping into the future or into the past, but not being too obvious about it. Shreve virtually tells two stories simultaneously, a pretty neat trick. From one sentence to the next, we go from the inner thoughts of Jean in 1995 to those of Marin in the 1800s. Jean is a photographer who is visiting Smutty Nose Island, which is off the coast of Maine. She's there to research murders that took place there well before she was born. Accompanying Jean are her husband and their young daughter, plus her husband's younger brother and his girlfriend. The group is staying on a boat owned by her husband's brother, putting them in close proximity to the scene of the old crime, where two women were killed in gruesome fashion and a man was given the death penalty after being convicted of the murders. Along with taking photographs of the area, Jean finds and steals documents from a local library that are relevant to the stories she's researching. They are letters written by a woman who survived the night of the murders, Marin, and a translation of her recollections from Norwegian to English. As we read through the pages of The Weight of Water, we learn about Jean, backstory that led her to meet and marry a poet named Thomas, a marriage that we can see from the start is a troubled one, precariously held together by their daughter. We also learn through the stolen pages that Jean is reading about Marin. We learn about Marin's life in Norway, marked by the early death of her mother, and her sudden decision to agree to marry the man who brings her to America in hopes of finding more bountiful waters to fish in. A crowded home in a new country comes to house not only she and her husband, but also her sister, when she eventually comes to America, and their brother and his newlywed wife, who come along a little later, and the boarder, who is eventually convicted for the brutal murders of Marin's sister and sister-in-law. I'll refrain from delving into spoiler territory by going any further into the plot lines. Instead, I will remark upon Shreve's incisive prose that brings us into two worlds set in the same desolate place. Heaviness lies in the hearts of both Jean and Marin for different sets of reasons. One is consumed by guilt and the other by suspicion. Both face problematic desires. Both women manage to survive while others around them do not. This is not to say, though, that they are especially alike, or their circumstances particularly similar. Yet Anita Shreve deftly intertwines their story arcs so that one begins where the other ends and the pattern keeps repeating, washing over us like the ebb and flow of the ocean over a rocky beach. After reading this book, I discovered that the double murder portion of the story, which is set in the 1800s, is based on a true crime. Shreve comes up with a motive for the crime in her novel. This has been done before and will be done again by writers of fiction that reimagines reality. The weight of masterful prose causes written words to sink into our skin and remain with us long after the reading is done with. So I give this book highest of praise. I understand that it's been made into a movie. I'm always curious for some reason about books that I read, whether they were turned into a movie or a series on TV or anything like that. Sometimes I go check them out, sometimes I don't. This one might have been a bit tricky to pull off because it's so much inner monologue, the thought process of Jean in the current time, and then the story that's taking place in the past is, her reading these letters, and certainly you can, portray that, on screen in a compelling fashion, but I think on the written page go much further into these people's lives, as people often say, including myself, the book tends to be better than the movie. That's probably the case here, though I don't know for sure because I haven't seen the movie yet. But it's probably the case since this book is exceptional, and it's hard to imagine a screen version being even better. So I think, matter of fact, I know that that's all I have to say about The Weight of Water. I recommend checking it out for yourself. Let me know in the comments if you have already read it or when you read it, what you thought about it. I would appreciate if you hit the like button, if you dug what I had to say. I'd appreciate if you subscribe to this channel if you do not subscribe already. Until the next time, this is Roy of Roy's Book Reviews, wishing you happy reading.